Hello friends, David Miller here. I wanted to talk to you today about good old 35mm film. This is the stuff that I was shooting when I started college way back in 1997. I used 35 probably up until about 2004, 2005. Got into digital photography. Sat in many classes at ASU where people would argue the merits of 35mm film versus digital, and history has borne out that 35 is an alternative process. When you don't have access to a darkroom or the chemistry to develop this stuff, it's incredibly expensive. I know that the camera store that is near me, the cost of developing and scanning a roll of film, something around the neighborhood of $16 if it's 36 exposures total. And for 36 small images, $16 each time, you take 5 rolls in, you're starting to get up to the $100 territory. It is gotta have a reason to be special for you to shoot 35mm film, in my opinion. It cannot just be, I like film, because you have to be able to either make money or there has to be something intrinsic in the film that makes it worth shooting. So I wanted to tell you guys about a few of the stranger kinds of films that I have been purchasing and using. First off, I'm going to talk about this company, Revolog. And Revolog specializes in film that has effects already pre-printed on top of the film, the emulsion. So when you shoot it, in the case of this Tesla 2, I get lightning bolt streaks that go all the way across the film. In the case of Snovlox, which is the one that I've kind of shot the most of and prefer the most, this is a black and white film that has essentially what looks like snow imprinted across it. Now, this snow also looks like fireflies, will-o'-the-wisps, little bits of energy. The Tesla 2 has little bits of energy, but because it's so clearly defined as lightning, it's very hard, I think, to sell that as a cool effect, and it looks more just like some random thing that happened. The Snovlox, I really enjoyed a lot of the shots that I got out of it. A lot of the shots that I prefer are the ones that are shot in dark environments. So you're gonna see some work I shot in Nashville with models Mariah Heeden and Katie Kinney, and this was shot in an area that had just like a small tight spotlight on top of them and all this darkness around them. In my mind, design-wise, that's what makes sense, to have the effect appear in the dark areas of the photo. In the case of a particular image of Katie Kinney, she's got the dots right over her eyes. I thought that was awesome. That was super cool. I've also tried some cinematic film. This is something that is rated ISO 25. Took this out to Bedrock City, which is a tourist attraction in Arizona. It's a very cool one. Sadly, it's closing. It's turning into a raptor farm, but if you watch this video and get out there right away, you might be able to encounter some of these old-timey, dilapidated Flintstones attractions. I shot this with my family. It has an odd color cast to it, but it's ISO 25, and in the sort of 5 p.m. daylight magic hour that I shot it in, I think I got some really neat results out of it. It actually makes me wish that I wasn't getting rid of my 35mm camera, which I am currently, just focusing on other things right now. Cinematic film and the cinematic approach in general is largely what I personally wanted to get out of shooting with 35mm film. I wanted things that were nostalgic. I wanted things that felt like they were of a particular era. They didn't have cameras in prehistory, so that's not the era I'm looking for, but I do feel like there is definitely this 70s feel to what I did with my family members. And lastly, I wanted to talk about this particular brand, Kono. They have a variety of films. This particular one is called Recorder, and it feels and looks a little bit like some kind of test film because it has numbers and like barcodes that go randomly across your film. The one roll I shot in Seattle with the model Shy Sugar Glider was very ultra high contrast, and Her particular look was very industrial anyways. We were going for something similar to Tetsuo Iron Man, this strange film from Japan from the late 80s. And this result really surprised me. I genuinely thought it was just going to be like a normal black and white film with numbers on it. And who knows if there's something odd about the film that messed up that particular scanning process. I had this scan at the same exact time I had a whole bunch of other stuff scanned, and none of that came out with this huge high contrast punch to it. So there you have it, some examples of weird 35mm films that I've made use of recently. There is a lot more out there. There's things that have light leaks, that have deliberate color shifts one way or another. Didn't feel inclined to try any of those ones out. The effects that I like the most are the ones that I've tried out. And, you know, if you're kind of a purist, look into this cinema still stuff. This cinematic film is awesome in my opinion, and it really speaks to the purest aesthetic of 35mm film.